The year is 1997, and if you have to impersonate somebody, the best way to do that is to take your face off. This is Face Off.
I don't care if I live.
You're not having any fun, are you, Sean? Try terrorism for hire. We'll blow some stuff up. It's more fun.
Plan B. Let's just kill each other.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to 2025, and we are here to start a new season of Random Rewatch, and we are going to kick it off with two completely insane, over-the-top, ridiculous action movies, ridiculously good. Both of these movies are so over-the-top, it's not even funny, but we love them anyway. So, the first one is going to be this one, 1997's Face Off, directed by John Woo. And the second one is going to be, I'll tell you at the end. So, Face Off, 1997 action, science fiction action movie, directed by John Woo, written by Mike Webb, Michael Collery, John Travolta, Nicolas Cage. John Travolta plays an FBI agent who has to go undercover as Nicolas Cage's character, and they accomplish this by literally swapping their faces. Yes, it is crazy as it sounds. So this film came off a spec script written in 1990 by Mike Webb and Michael Collery. A spec script is a script that a screenwriter or screenwriters will write with no commission or no prior planning. Like, nobody's coming to them and saying, hey, we need this movie, write the script for it. This is, they come up with an idea, they write the script with the hopes that they'll be able to sell that script to a studio or producer in order to get produced. So Mike Webb had written, probably most notably, he was a screenwriter on The Mask, the Jim Carrey movie. He also had written Darkman 3, Die, Darkman, Die, the low-budget sequel to Darkman, which we've done on this channel. Michael Collery had written a couple of episodes of Alfred Hitchcock Presents. He created a story in Death Wish, The Face of Death, and was also a credited writer on Darkman 3, Die, Darkman, Die. The two of them would go off to write Lara Croft Tomb Raider, the Angelina Jolie movie. So I guess they had a mutual friend who had gotten involved in a hang gliding accident and had severely damaged their face. And the medical professionals at the time, in order to reconstruct the face, apparently had removed it, did the reconstruction, and then put this gentleman's face back on. And this is where they came up with the idea of a removable face. They also were working on doing some kind of story that was reminiscent of the James Cagney movie White Heat, where there was a prison riot and somebody escaped during a prison riot. We've seen that trope a bunch of times. And so this is the story that they came up with. Producer Joel Silver, who was known for a ton of stuff, but largely, producing at that point 48 Hours, Streets of Fire, Weird Science, Commando, Predator, Die Hard, all the Lethal Weapon movies, Last Boy Scout. Just, if it's an action movie in the 80s or 90s, chances are Joel Silver had his fingers in it at some point. So he optioned this script in 1991 for Warner Brothers. Originally, it was set up to be like a futuristic take. It wasn't going to be a contemporary film. Kind of kicked around, but nothing really happened. The option expired in 1994, and Paramount Pictures bought the script. At that point, he had directed a couple of movies, including Dragonheart with Dennis Quaid and Daylight with Sylvester Stallone. He would go on to direct The Fast and the Furious and Triple X and one of the weaker Mummy movies. So he worked on developing the script for a while, but then was also working on Dragonheart and decided he was going to do Dragonheart. And so this film wound up going to John Woo. Now, John Woo was a Hong Kong action director who had not been given a project like this for an American studio up until this point. He had done a couple of movies for American studios. He did Hard Target. He did Broken Arrow with John Travolta, but he hadn't been given any kind of real creative control over those. He was basically kind of a for-hire director, just come in, shoot the script, make the movie, and the producers dealt with all of kind of the creative decisions. Face Off is the first film where Woo really gets to exercise creative control, and it really does show as we see his stuff going forward, or you look at some of his older Hong Kong stuff. There's a lot of like John Woo elements, slow-mo, doves flying around everywhere, stuff like that, that is really kind of his signature, and that is very, very present in this film. So the studio is looking at a lot of different people in terms of pairs. The first one that everybody kind of thought of was Schwarzenegger and Stallone, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. You've got some very distinctive vocal inflections going on with both of those actors, shall we say. You've got, even when Stallone at his biggest, you've got massive size differences between these two men. It would have been really hard to kind of pull off. Another pair that was in consideration was Michael Douglas and Harrison Ford. That's an interesting thought, although I would think it would be a much different film with those two guys in particular. A lot more of a probably psychological thriller, maybe more of a sexual thriller with those two guys in it. So they quickly moved on, although Michael Douglas would stay on to the project as a producer. The other batch, the third batch, was Bruce Willis and Alec Baldwin. Again, that's an interesting film. It's a different film than this, but especially a mid-90s Alec Baldwin, think of like a Hunt for Red October kind of guy with Bruce Willis. That's a really interesting combination, but again, that didn't work out. Johnny Depp was apparently circling around this project for a while, but apparently thought it was a hockey movie. I don't know. Eventually, John Woo would go to hire John Travolta, who he had just worked with in Broken Arrow, and Nicolas Cage, who was kind of in this weird little renaissance of action movies in the mid to late 90s. He had been doing, some kind of serious films and some kind of offbeat comedies. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff, between like going from like 87, going from like Raising Arizona to Moonstruck, or doing like Rumblefish and Valley Girl in the same year. I mean, it's kind of a weird career, but then he goes on this, he wins an Oscar for Leaving Las Vegas in 1995, and then he goes on to bang out The Rock, Con Air, and Face Off, like kind of the Nicolas Cage action trilogy. And it's not to say that he doesn't keep doing that kind of stuff. I mean, he goes on, he does 8mm, he does Gone in 60 Seconds, he does Wind Talkers and National Treasure, but he also he's got the weirdest career of this combination of like small films, Oscar bait movies, and then these weird action paycheck films that he is oddly good in. I mean, both The Rock and Con Air are great movies to like kick back on a Sunday afternoon and just put on and turn your brain off. And Face Off is really kind of no different. It's really such a weird career. Now, Travolta's kind of got a similar arc. I mean, he does, some small parts, but he gets obviously Saturday Night Fever in 77. He's doing Grease the next year. He's doing Urban Cowboy. And then he kind of goes into like these lower tier movies like Staying Alive or Perfect or The Experts. He's a little bit of a pop with Look Who's Talking, the Look Who's Talking movies in the early 90s, but then, and he's kind of like, yeah, he's a decent actor. He's kind of a B-list, used to be A-list guy. But then Pulp Fiction hits in 94, and his career is completely kind of revitalized. He does Get Shorty. He does Michael. He does Phenomenon. He does Broken Arrow. He's got some other smaller projects in the middle there. And then this film hits. So you've got these two guys who are in this really kind of weird place in their career. Nicolas Cage, who just kind of started this action career. John Travolta, who's maybe trying to kick off the same thing. He just done Broken Arrow. You're really catching these guys at an interesting point in their career, I think. So, the budget's set, the actors are in place, and we are ready to go. So this film opens up with this really weird opening credit scene. You start with Travolta and a young child. They're on a carousel, and you've got Nicolas Cage up on a hill with a sniper rifle and the weirdest fake mustache. I mean, it's almost like he's like using his Raising Arizona character for this or something. I don't know. But he's up on this hill. He's got the rifle. He's drinking a Pepsi, and he's taking aim at John Travolta's character, and the shot's fired. It goes through Travolta. It hits the kid. People are screaming. The kid's dead. And this is all the opening credits. Directed by, edited by, everything's going by as we're watching this kid get shot on a merry-go-round. And it's kind of like this weird slow-mo-y thing. And then we get a card that says 6 years later. Now we're, I guess, getting into the main point of the movie. So you've got two different things going on at the same time here. You've got John Travolta in the FBI office. Obviously, he is an agent with some authority. You have Nicolas Cage in the LA Convention Center wearing a priest's cassock with a choir singing the Hallelujah chorus from Handel's Messiah. And they're going back and forth between these two things. And it is pretty clear that John Travolta's character, Sean Archer, is deeply obsessed with Nicolas Cage's character, whose name is Castor Troy.
Sheriff's Department? Airport Police?
Still waiting, but Interpol insists he's in Tripoli.
Yeah, well, you trust that $1 billion satellite, okay? I'll trust a $10 snitch at this point.
Sean, look,
What?
why don't you just give me a little break, okay?
We'll take a break when the case breaks, okay?
He just wants the other agents to be as obsessed as he is. We're not taking any breaks. We're not doing anything. We are just going after this guy. Meanwhile, you have this weird thing with Castor, who is obviously planting some kind of device. Then he comes out and starts dancing in front of this choir in the middle of this crowd of people. And then he walks up to this blonde girl. Like, are there no chaperones for this choir? Is there nobody in charge of anything? That this priest is just going to walk up behind her and start whispering in her ear?
I never really enjoyed the Messiah. In fact, I think it's fine. But your voice makes even a hack like Handel seem like a genius. Hallelujah! Hallelujah!
And then he's literally in front of everybody. He's going to grab her butt and make an O-face. I mean, this is beyond bizarre. And we're off and running in this movie. So we cut to an airport scene, and we've got Castor getting out of the car. We got great music throughout this. The music here is composed by John Powell. This is actually his first score that he did. He would go on to do some really significant scores. He did all of the Bourne films. He did Happy Feet. He did X-Men, The Last Stand. He just did Wicked. He's doing the next Wicked film. The score is produced by Hans Zimmer. It's really great music throughout this film. So he comes over to the car where we see some people waiting for him, including who turns out to be his brother Pollux. So Castor and Pollux are the famed Gemini twins. When you see the zodiac symbol of the twins, those are the twins, Castor and Pollux. And the zodiac constellation, the two main stars in the constellation Gemini are Castor and Pollux. So he walks over, and they've got like kind of a goodie box for him, like a cigar box or a candy box. They open it up, and if you take a freeze frame of what's in there, he's got some chiclets, he's got some bazooka, he's got a pair of sunglasses, he's got a knife, some blue pills, maybe some EDMA or Molly, It's definitely party time for Castor. So we know that Sean has figured out that Castor is flying out of the airport because his brother had booked a ticket or had paid for the plane, and he never goes anywhere without his brother. So you know there's this ambush coming. Castor and Pollux and their henchmen, they get on the plane, and there is a female flight attendant there. Castor has this really kind of strange interaction with her.
If I were to send you flowers, where would I, no, wait, let me rephrase. If I were to let you suck my tongue, would you be grateful?
Which becomes even more strange because you find out in a minute or two that she's actually an FBI agent. So I guess she's taken her job pretty seriously. But Sean and the team show up, and there's a shootout on the runway. They block the plane. Then they go into this airplane hangar, and there's a shootout in there, and they're chasing them around. And for some reason, apparently, in this abandoned airplane hangar, there's a jet engine on a stand that's running by itself, I guess. But they have their, first kind of face-to-face.
Please, man, don't shoot me. I'm scared, Johnny. Well, I think you better pull the trigger, because I don't give a I'm ready. Ready for the big ride, baby.
Before involving the jet engine, Castor is knocked out, and Sean thinks he's killed, and now we move on to the next part, which is Sean coming home. We meet Sean's wife, Eve, who is played by Joan Allen. Joan Allen, at this point, has done some minor roles and a couple of co-leads or supporting roles in a bunch of films, including Peggy Sue Got Married, Tucker, A Man in His Dream, Searching for Bobby Fischer. She plays Eve Archer, Sean's wife here. They're having some difficulty and stress. I mean, it's kind of expected. They lost a child. Probably nothing is ever going to be okay, but Sean lets her know that they finally caught Castor, and it seems like the end of this chapter of their life is over. We also meet Sean Archer's daughter, played by Dominique Swain. This is Dominique Swain's first film. She works a lot. She has a lot of credits on her IMDb, but nothing really big. She would go on in the same year as Face Off. She would play Lolita in the 1997 Adrian Lyne adaptation of the novel with Jeremy Irons. But then after that, it's just a bunch of stuff that really probably nobody's heard of, but she does really tend to work a lot. So, I mean, good for her. Did a couple music videos, a couple guest appearances on TV, and a lot of smaller films. So she is, this is Jamie, Sean and Eve's daughter, who is variously rebellious in various ways. She's a very non-convincing goth, I think, in this scene, but yeah, typical 90s troubled, rebellious teenage daughter. So we find out from kind of a senior FBI official played by CCH Pounder that they have Pollux, and he is not talking. They know there's a bomb. They know that there's something that's going to happen, but they do not know where it is, and Pollux is not saying anything. So they come up with this idea that they're going to have Sean pretend to be Castor and go into the same prison that Pollux is in, because Sean knows Castor Troy better than anybody else does, and he obviously doesn't think that's going to work until they take him to this super secret off-the-books lab where apparently they can swap faces. We meet Dr. Walsh, who is played by Colm Fiore, another actor who's just in a ton of stuff. Some you may have seen, some you may not. He's currently in Landman with Billy Bob Thornton. He was in For All Mankind for a few episodes playing Werner von Braun. Nerds will remember him in Thor as Laufey. He's the same guy. So Sean, at some point has a conversation with his wife, and he tells her he's going on this undercover. She's not happy. She thought it was over. He convinces, or he doesn't convince her, but he basically tells her that he's going to go do this and he's got to do it. He goes to this lab and they do this face surgery where they remove Castor's face. They remove his face. They put his face in a jar of some kind of liquid, conveniently, and then they take Castor's face and they put it onto his skull. Apparently in the middle of this delicate surgery where his face has literally been taken off his skull, they decide they're going to give him a haircut so that he matches Castor, because I guess they couldn't give him the haircut beforehand. Doesn't seem particularly sanitary to me, but that's what they're going for. Gotta get the haircut in while we're swapping the faces. They put the face on, and they had done some hand waving and explained that, modern drugs, something like this would have been months to recover, but we can do it in a couple of days. You get the idea that maybe this was a couple of weeks that he was involved in this whole process. Castor is obviously not dead. He is in a coma, laying in this hospital bed, and they do this surgery to make John Travolta look like Nicolas Cage. There's also a line that they throw in there about being able to take care of his love handles, because Travolta at this point in his career is a little, shall we say, stockier than he was in his Saturday Night Fever days, and he's certainly a little bigger than Nick Cage is at this point.
With the new anti-inflammatories, healing takes days, not weeks. Your blood types won't match, but Pollux won't know that. Height difference is negligible. Skin pigment, eye pigment, both almost identical. We'll use laser shears for the hairline, micro plugs for body hair. We'll do an abdominoplasty, take care of those love handles. But all that's the easy part. Here's the real...
So they take Sean into this top secret government prison where nobody knows where the prisoners are, or it's a supermax. They have magnetic boots that they can magnetize the floor and immobilize all the prisoners. And he comes in and confronts, quote unquote, his brother. And at first, Pollux seems a little unsure, but Sean kind of convinces him by, complimenting his work and talking to him about the bomb and that it's a work of art. And Pollux kind of lets it out that the bomb is in the convention center.
We're gonna blow up LA, bro. Ain't it cool?
All right, rub my nose in it, why don't you? $10 million design, and now those militia nut jobs get to keep their cash?
That bomb you built does deserve an audience. It's a work of art. It belongs in the Louvre.
Yes, it does. Oh, well. I guess the LA Convention Center will have to do.
But before Sean can really do anything about that, he finds out that he has a visitor, or Castor has a visitor. It turns out that Pollux has woken up. Apparently the first thing he decides to do when he wakes up missing his face is to have a cigarette. And he calls somebody, and they come over and they get Dr. Walsh to swap Archer's face onto him. Apparently put the love handles back on. And then he shows up at the prison as Sean Archer and confronts Castor.
You good looking. You're hot.
It's like looking in a mirror, only not.
Troy?
Now that is between us, okay?
Or actually, I guess he's confronting Sean Archer. He lets him know that, hey, this is cool because I like being out. I like being you. Think about all the power I have and everything that I can do and making love to your wife. And you're going to be stuck in here for a very long time.
I torched all the evidence that proves you're you, okay? So, wow, looks like you're gonna be in here for the next 100 years. I have got to go. I've got a government job to abuse.
And obviously, Sean tries to convince the guards. You know, there's always that one super mean guard in any of these prison movies. In this case, you have John Carroll Lynch, who's playing Walton. But, you know, I'm thinking of like Clancy Brown playing Hadley in Shawshank Redemption, right? There's always that one guy who is just completely sadistic, and this is Walton. And so this naturally evolves, of course, into a prison riot where there's going to be escape in the middle of it. So here's your blueprint for Guardians of the Galaxy. So Castor, who is posing as Sean at the FBI office, who's getting lauded for saving the day, so to speak, they tell him that Castor has escaped from the prison, and he freaks out because he knows that it's not Castor, he knows that it's Sean, and he knows that Sean's going to be coming for him.
Troy's dead.
He got killed trying to escape from marijuana.
Where's his body? I want to see his body.
It hasn't been recovered yet.
It hasn't been recovered yet? Get the LAPD on this.
Even if he is alive, Castor isn't stupid enough to come back to the city.
You must trust me. He's already here.
So he wants to get everybody involved in trying to find him, even though the rest of the FBI team seems to think that he's got to be dead. Sean, meanwhile, winds up going to, you know, Castor's evil lair. There's always one of those. He meets up with Sasha. They meet. Sasha tells him about Adam. The Castor has this kid that he doesn't know about, who he still doesn't know about, but now that Sean knows about it. Then there's this big shootout. Lazaro, the henchman, gets killed. Pollux gets killed. Sean goes back to his own house, and he meets up with Eve, who obviously is freaking out because she looks like Castor Troy, the man who killed her son. Sean tries to convince her by telling her something that only she would know about the last time that they were together.
No, you killed her!
I did not kill her son. I'm Sean. Last time I saw you was in this room. We had a fight when I said I had to go away again. I spent the night in Mike's old
So he convinces Eve, and then she's got to pretend so that he can put his plan together. Castor's starting to figure it out. He pays her a visit at the hospital. There's this, you know, suspenseful moment where he's talking to her and makes a quip about how their relationship is actually turning into a marriage.
I mean, what does a guy to think when his wife runs off in the middle of the night?
Then I'm a doctor that's on call, so please let me get back to work, okay?
Sorry. Lies, distrust, mixed messages. This is turning into a real marriage.
Meanwhile, he has caused the death of his boss by giving him a heart attack, by hitting him a certain way and telling him that he was actually Castor Troy. So now there is this big funeral scene. We're coming into, you know, the end of the movie. There's this big funeral scene, and, you know, this FBI manager, this FBI special agent in charge, is getting a funeral like he was a pope or a king or something like that. There's thousands of people there. It's this huge church, which are filled with doves for some reason because it's John Woo. And Castor is setting up a raid there because he knows that Sean is going to try to go there. So Sean gets himself out of the way of the crowd, and he winds up in this chapel. Sean comes in. It's actually a really cool scene, him coming in and chanting in fake Latin, and they wind up, you know, in another confrontation, which is similar to the airplane hangar. They get into there's another shootout going on, and Castor repeats the not having fun line.
Ah, yes. The eternal battle between good and evil, saint and sinner. But you're still not having any fun!
They went up outside. There's this really cool speedboat chase, which apparently was a really huge deal to shoot. Then they get off the boats, and then somehow Castor winds up getting a hold of Jamie, who does the knife thing.
Claude. No daughter of mine would shoot so wide. Dad, put the gun down. Put it down. Dad, put it down. Now we're gonna find out what's in Papa's bag. Peaches. Say goodbye to Papa.
That he had taught her. Then there's the boat chase. And then he wrecks the boat and winds up getting captured by Sean. You know, Sean's got the spear gun on him, and he's going to try to get out of it. He's going to try to surrender.
You're right, Sean. I've misbehaved. I need to be punished. But remember, every time you look in the mirror, you'll see my face.
But Sean's not having any of it. Sean kills him. And then there's this weird kind of montage where there's surgery and they're bringing in a crack team. But then Eve's at home and, you know, you see Sean coming by the window, and not only is he home and with his own face on, absolutely perfect, but he has brought home Adam because Sasha has gotten killed and Castor's killed. And so all of a sudden Adam is just now Sean's kid, I guess. Consolation prize, maybe? You know, Jamie comes running up, immediately accepts him, does this weird, so there's this weird face thing is like so on the nose that Sean does where he like touches your face if he has affection for you. And Jamie does this to Adam, and Adam's like, oh, this is cool. Be like, this strange girl that I don't know is like rubbing her hand on my face, but that's it. That's the end of the movie. So this film was released in June 27th, 1997. It had a $23 million opening, wound up with $112 million domestic, $133 million international, $245 million on a budget of $80. So that's pretty successful. It's got a 93 Rotten Tomatoes, 82 Metacritic, a B+ on CineScore. Roger Ebert gave it 3 stars. And he wrote a really good review. He said that it was utterly absurd, that the whole premise was absurd. But he said that all through the movie, you find yourself reinterpreting every scene as you realize the other character is really playing it. And I think that's a good point. You're watching Nicolas Cage do it, but you're realizing that it's Nicolas Cage playing John Travolta as John Travolta would play the scene, and vice versa. It's actually a pretty interesting way to take a look at it. This is part of what they call the Holy Trinity of Nick Cage action films. The Rock, Face Off, Con Air. That is a really good Sunday afternoon, if you ask me. They say that this movie inspired Andrew Lau's Infernal Affairs. Not that Infernal Affairs that they actually swapped their faces, but that the two main characters swapped their identities and their roles, so to speak. And then, of course, Infernal Affairs would go on to get remade by Martin Scorsese as The Departed. The only Oscar nomination that it got was for sound effects editing, although it did win an MTV Movie Award, I'm pretty sure, and maybe a Saturn Award. Supposedly, there is a sequel in production, or at least pre-production, although it's been about 6 years now. Paramount announced in 2019 that they were going to... Well, first they announced that they were going to remake it, but then in 22 or 23 that changed, and it was going to be a sequel with Adam Wingard directing it. I don't know that there's been a lot of movement on it, but it's Paramount, so who knows. So that's it. That's it for Face Off. And it is a completely bonzo nuts action movie from the 90s. And as I promised at the beginning, we're going to do another one next time. And that one is going to be the equally bonzo 90s action movie Cliffhanger with Sylvester Stallone. So we will see you for that one. Hey guys, I'm jumping in here from the edit. The plan was to go right to Cliffhanger, but with the death of the legendary Gene Hackman, I decided that I wanted to do one of his films, so we'll do another 90s action movie. We're going to do Crimson Tide next time, and then following that, we're going to do Cliffhanger. So it's going to be 90s 3 times in a row. It's going to be awesome. And check out our main show. Rendell and I have done a couple of shows so far this year, and Justin and I are working on a project. We may have a couple of things coming up this year as well. So thanks for listening. We'll check you out next time.